Cool, we're flooding back in. About 15 more seconds. Cool, we're all back. Let's hear someone want to talk about what they discussed in their groups. Let's do the first one first. How do we make a class in Ruby? Thoughts?
Very carefully.
Yes. Unless you're adventurous. I'll accept that. All right, let's see. Let's play face roulette. Jordan.
Oh man. You guys can hear me, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Creating a class in Ruby, you just create a file, typically with the name of the class.
Mm-hmm.
Write the word class at the top, name
Yep.
the class what you want it to be named, throw an end at the bottom.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, yeah, we're not trying to trick you here. Like these are just like my kind of questions. How do you make an instance of a class? Let's face roulette again. Let's see who's the most awkward looking in the camera right now that we can pick. Kelsha's smiling and moving.
Dang it, I was trying to get breakfast. So you just do the class name with a capital for the first letter, dot new, and then you put in the attributes.
Yeah, and then we usually assign it to a thing. And where does plain old Ruby data, like where's a class, when we instantiate a class, where does it live? All right, let's go Ryan.
I'm thinking it lives in like a temporary storage of some sort.
Yeah.
So like when you end the session, it no longer exists once you start it back up.
Yeah, and that temporary storage would be your RAM in your computer.
Yeah.
Like when we instantiate something in Ruby, it comes into RAM, and then Ruby has this thing called garbage collection, which is when an object or something's not being used, it goes kind of poof. I think that like we I don't know how much of this you talked about in module 1, but one of the reasons why Ruby is such a developer-friendly language is that we don't have to monitor garbage collection. It does all this stuff kind of automatically for us. Whereas in other languages, like little lower level languages, we kind of have to like clean up after ourselves. And like, it's more efficient that way. It's more work. And you know, as I think like Bill Gates said, I'm pretty sure Bill Gates said this, like if you want something done efficiently, don't hire the smartest person, hire the laziest person. And I'm like, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. So we're going to be talking about implementing the cart and order lifecycle in our setlist application. The reason why we want to kind of like do a refresher on Ruby classes in particular is because we're going to introduce the idea of a plain old Ruby object. There is nothing new about a plain old Ruby object. It is a class that you have used before, much like you've done before, except now we're doing it in Rails. Like we are not really doing anything new today. We're just kind of like assembling it all together, and that's why I feel like this class is kind of like super kind of important, because it's going to tie together a lot of the small pieces that we've been talking about. So the first thing we're going to do is that I'm going to share my screen. Can you see that? All right, cool. Let me set a timer so we can keep on track on palms. As I remember about this, I think, how many people here have been like a lot less active because of this whole don't go anywhere? Yeah. I'm getting some yeses in there. I'm assuming like pretty much everyone. Like I looked at my watch the other day and like 4,000 steps. I'm like, Wow, that is a lot less than I would be out. So I would like to propose, and not everyone has to do this. Every single palm we break, do 10 of something. I'm thinking I'm going to be doing squats. You can do push-ups, whatever. You don't have to do it. If you'd like to join me in doing this, you are more than welcome to. But I think it would be nice, like, let's, like, as a group, let's try to, like, not waste away and, you know, be, at least make some attempt at being healthy. Cool. So we're in our, this is the set list that I've cloned down from our, uh, from the previous classes. And what I'm going to do is that we're going to use this, the big picture is that we have this index of songs. And what we're going to do is that we are going to add songs to a cart. And we are going to write a test for that. So we're in our spec folder, we're going to be features, because these tests are centered around the idea of a cart. We're going to create a new folder for them, and we're going to make a new test. We're going to call it add song spec.rb. Cool. And we're going to standard things in the test. Require our old friend Rails helper. Describe. And again, I'm not very good at typing and talking and thinking at the same time, so I might go a little silent as I type. I will be pausing at set intervals to open it up to questions. I also want to mention that this class, you should not be attempting to code along. It's very, very important that you kind of listen and like look at the code, and you'll have an opportunity to kind of do this on your own afterwards. And also, please point out if I make a misspelling. Which artist? I think we need to bring in the king for this lesson. Not Astley.
Oh.
Trying to be a little more consistent. Just making sure I close all the things. Why is my neighbor stopping at 9 in the morning? I don't know if you can hear that. Cool, cool, cool. So we create an artist. We created a song for that artist, the finest song in all the land. We're going to visit the song's index page, and we're going to click with the button attached to the song, add song, and we're going to expect it to give us a message that says, you now have copy of whatever the song title in your cart. Any questions about this test? I'm going to take the silence as no. And as you know, this is pretty straightforward. We create the setup. We have our stuff set up. We are gonna click a button that belongs to a song, and know that we used it within song ID to kind of like make sure that we're hitting the right song to do that. And we're going to expect to have some content on the page. Cool. So what we're going to do next, oops, nope. All right. We're going to run our test. What I like to do is that when I'm working on a certain feature, I will just run the one test. And like the test I'm working on, and when I finish the story, I will run all of them. I like to do this because it's like as your test suite gets longer and bigger, like do you really want to sit there for like potentially minutes? I think the longest test suite I've worked on was like it took like 15 minutes to run beginning to end. Josh, a former instructor here, he worked for this energy company, and he said their test suite top to bottom took about 4 hours to run. So like why not, how about we don't wait around if we don't have to. Ooh. Spec. What is this? Oh. Yeah, sorry. I deleted the directory. I was working on this on my own to like make sure everything was working fine, and I deleted the directory and I recreated it, and it does not like it when I do that. Cool. And it says like no button, add song. Cool. First, I did notice that I did not make this. That's going to bother me if I leave that lowercase. So let's fix that right there. So we don't have a button. Let's go add that button. It's going to be in the songs index. HTML.rb. We're going to put it inside the section, right? Because the section is what has this ID here, and we want each song to have its button, and we use these two kind of features together so that we can make sure that we click on a specific appropriate song. Button 2, add song. Button 2 is a wonderful thing from Rails that lets us make buttons. It's kind of like link to, but for buttons. I don't know a better way to describe that, and I hope you all understand what I meant. Cool. Add the button.
You're missing a quote.
Am I? Yes, thank you. Add song. Yeah, it's going to complain about that. Let's run the test again. And we see here that no route matches post songs. Well, that was a big jump. Like we made a button, now we're like all to the routing. And the reason for that is the button to helper, when we don't tell it otherwise, it takes some things as set some things as defaults, right? So because we haven't specified what path we're working with, it just assumes the current path is what we're going to use. And it's also, button 2 is also send posts by default. So that's why the button, we automatically jump straight to the no route found error. So do we want to do a post to songs, or what? I guess the question here is, what does post song, what should that do? What CRUD RESTful action should that map to? Anyone?
Create.
What are we creating?
A new song.
A new song, right? But are we creating a new song?
No.
No, we're not, right? So we have to do something different. Tony, were you answering, or is that a question?
I had a quick question.
Yeah.
It's sort of not contextual as much anymore. I just had a question about the within in the RSpec test.
Yeah.
I was just wondering, are there any scoping issues that you ever need to consider in terms of where you bury that ID when you're using that within, or does it just scan everything on the page?
It scans, well, if you just have it within, it will scan everything on the page, but okay. This is where things get, sometimes I'll have to do this, but like I would try to write my HTML in a way that I would avoid the situation. You could nest them. Like you could have IDs within classes, and then you could then go deeper that way.
Okay, but like if you have your HTML structure and let's say your link is buried like 3 or 4 blocks in, it won't have any issues reaching that.
No, okay. I think the big picture to remember that we want to use like classes for like groups of things, but IDs should be unique.
Okay,
There
got
should
it.
be only one thing with an ID.
Got it. All right, thanks.
So where were we? So yeah, so we want to be kind of RESTful. We want to do this. But the thing is that when we are adding a song, when we think about what are we really doing, right? We're not making a song. We already have a song in the database. We want to update the cart, right? We're not creating a cart. A cart should kind of just exist. We're not storing a cart in a database. So like the thing is that there's no really RESTful routing convention, but we want to make it kind of like look RESTful. So the thing is, when we think about it, when I go to Amazon.com at like 4 a.m. when I need to buy like ridiculous things, I already have a cart there, even if I've never been there. If you go to AlicesStore.com and they sell things, like you have a cart by default. So what we're going to do is that the big picture idea is that when we add something to the cart, we are not creating the cart, we are updating the cart. So that means we're going to be patching a cart. And so those are two pieces of information we need. The third is like, well, the cart needs to know what we're going to add to it. So we also need to tell it what song. So knowing that we're going to patch because we're going to update, we're going to do it to the cart, which we already have, and we need to send along the ID of the song we want to add to it. We're going to use the route patch, the verb patch, and the URI of cart/song ID. Questions about that?
Yeah, I am confused. I think I must have looked away when you pointed out where that cart naturally exists, or
we haven't done anything with the cart yet. We're just talking about it right now. Right? We're letting our errors kind of like drive us along.
okay,
right?
I got you. All right.
So, well, I'll take a step back and kind of like start from the beginning, right? The idea here is that add song when you do the Ubuntu does post songs, but we don't want to do post songs. When we think about it, what we're doing here is that we are modifying the cart. We're not creating a cart. We're going to modify it because when we go to a site, we should automatically have a cart. So we want to like do this in a way that we can still kind of look as RESTful as possible. So if our verb and URI combination is going to be patch and it's going to go to cart/song ID, what controller, if we're trying to be RESTful, what controller and action should that map to? David, what do you think?
A cart controller.
And what action?
Update.
Yep. So I'm going to go to our handy routes file. I'm going to put this at the bottom. We're going to do patch cart song ID to cart update, right? Because we said that this is the verb we're going to use. This is the URI, the cart, and the song ID. The cart because that's what we're kind of working with, and the song ID because we need to tell the cart what song we're going to add. Krista, you are muted.
So, does that need to be carts update since all of our other controllers are plural?
No. It is not because we're only working with one cart.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, I guess this is kind of the one of the times where it's like it's not plural. Okay. So that is fun. That is fun for everyone. Yes. Cool. With Mod 2 definitely being Mod 2, where do you put the S?
All that S's, right?
Yeah. Or do we not have any S's now? So we've got this route in here, and that's cool. So the next step is we want to make this go to that stuff. We want to modify the URL it goes to, and we want to modify the method it's using, the verb. So button 2 can take additional arguments. The first one is going to be the text of the button. We now tell it where we want it to go, cart, and we want to pass in the song.id. The keyboard is not with me today. And we can tell it that we want to patch. Any questions about this, my modification to the button 2 line of code? Button 2 by default will send a post to whatever route it's in because we don't want it to go to post a song, so we tell it like, hey, instead you're going to go to cart, and we're going to pass in the song ID, and we're going to change the method to patch. Krista, do you have a new question, or is that the hand from before? That appears to be a hand from before. Andy?
So if we did want to do a post to songs, would we not put the additional arguments in there, or is it convention to put them in just so it's clear what we're doing?
Oh, that's a good question. I would probably put it in. Because like, I think that it is always better to over communicate your intent than under communicate your intent. If that makes sense. I think that if I see it goes to /songs and post, I'm like, yeah, it goes to post songs. If I don't see that, I'm like, what was the default again? Like the defaults, I don't, it's not something that is like is not instant recall for me, and like I don't think it is for many people. So yeah, I would probably put it in explicitly. I always, yeah. Mike?
Cool.
I just realized I might have heard something weird. Did you say that the button default is a post?
Yep. Post to whatever URI is currently at.
Because that's the same thing as a link to, but a link to defaults to a get and a button to defaults to a post?
Yep.
Okay.
Well, again, like if you say that's what a link to defaults to, the same URI, like then sure. Like that's not just something I remember. And that's not something we expect you to remember.
So you just always put in your methods?
I generally do.
Okay.
Maybe not for link. Probably not for link. Because like that's always going to be a get. Very rarely. Whereas buttons may do many different things. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but you can always just manually put it in. You could manually put a link with a get.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just that with the link, I'll generally skip the get, but with a post, with a button, I'll generally. Oh man, you're making me think now. Like, what you're making me question everything. Like, like what do I really believe? And I think that. I think that like when I think about like what I believe deep down, like I think that like generally default to posts being buttons. Yeah.
I mean, if you can just
long story
manually
short,
put it in, then it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I think that I would probably default to putting it in because I want to be as explicit as possible and I want to be as communicative as possible to the next person to code. On the job, do whatever the rest of your team does. Tony?
So I just kind of want to understand this conceptually. So essentially what this is doing is adding that song ID to, it's sort of like conceptually like adding it to a collection that is cart.
Not quite. What we want to do is that right now, all we're saying is that I want, when I click this button, to hit the cart controller update action, and I want to send along the song ID. We have not gotten to the point where we're adding anything to the cart yet. We have to do that ourselves.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, so this is just sending a message to the controller.
Yes.
Got it. Okay.
No cart stuff yet. No cart stuff yet.
Understood. Thanks.
Cool. All right. Let us run the test again and see what it tells us. Our good old friend, uninitialized constant. We know what to do. Controllers. Are you okay? No, it's okay. I just want to make sure you're okay. So, we create the cart, inherit some application controller, and we make that update action because we know we're going to need that update action. And we saved it. Let's run our test again. And we are unable to find XPath HTML. This is a little different. Essentially, this is another variation of the whole I can't find a view error message. Fine. But the thing is that we don't really have an update view. Like in the past, when we've updated something, what do? Do we render a view? Just anyone. Mikey, I saw a visible head shake. What do you say? What should we do?
In the past, when we've updated, we've just redirected to.
Yeah, redirect. And we're just gonna redirect to songs. We're gonna go back to the songs on the next page, right? That sounds reasonable. Like when we add something to the cart, we go back to that same page. Nothing weird. Cool. And what we're gonna do is we are going to Rails S, and we're gonna see what happens. Like I keep saying to you, it never hurts to just kind of start up your Rails server every once in a while, and make sure that the thing that you expect to work works. Can you all see my browser window okay? Go to songs. We have some songs. I'm going to add a song. I mean, the button works, but like we don't see any kind of message. I also appreciate this says my fancy application. That's the first time me seeing that. So we have it redirecting, and like our application is not broken, but we still got to do some stuff. Server. Before we redirect, let's we have to send that message out, right? So let's do this. Song equals song.find params song ID, and we're gonna do flash notice equals. You now have one copy of song.title in your cart. And we redirect. Questions about this bit of code here in our controller. We're finding the song, and we're going to send a flash notice saying, like, I now have one copy of this song. Cool. I'm going to run my test. Hey, passing test. Let's run all of them. I have not broken anything else. Also, a very joyous moment in my life. Let's start it up. Let's take a look. No, where's my window? Did I close it? Oh, here we go. Let's refresh just to make sure. Oh, I have one copy of I Really Like You in my cart. That's fantastic. I want to listen to Call Me Maybe. I now have one copy of Call Me Maybe in my cart. Bad Guy. I like that song. I have one copy of Bad Guy in my cart. Awesome. You know what? I want to listen to this song again because I have not listened to this song enough yet. Well, that's a problem. It only has one. Unfortunately, we are not done with our kind of adding to a cart. Want to pause here for questions about things we've done up till here. Kevin.
I was wondering why, let's see, when we do the update, like we're redirecting to song, we're putting this functionality in song. Wait a minute. Instead of a cart controller, you know, like, or maybe I'm getting ahead of it. Like there's something like why are we originating with a song when we have this whole cart controller function?
I mean, we're just redirecting back to songs. So when we think about it, like if I go to, all right, this is going to be dicey, but
or like,
do not judge me based on what I've purchased. I hope this works the way I want it to. Let's look for dog treats. Oh, it doesn't do it. I'm looking for, like, I can add to cart here for this item, whatever this item is, right? It'll just take me back to this page. I don't want to, like, I think that would be really annoying. Let's rephrase it this way. You could do whatever you want. You could have it redirect to the cart and display the cart if you want to. But I think that, like, why would I do that when I want to give the opportunity for people to buy more things on my page instead of having to go back a couple times?
Makes sense, yeah.
Right, like this, like the decision to redirect to the cart, the song's index is a kind of a user one, right? Like, yes, you could have it so that when you add to the cart, it goes to the cart and shows you all the stuff, but we're not there yet. Ryan?
I was gonna say, like, what cart? I don't see anything to like store anything in.
We haven't
We're
gotten
just
there
flash. Okay.
Yep. We're
Okay.
just like, yeah, we'll get there. Cool. All right. Mike?
How much information can you have in one of those flash messages? Could your flash message be a screenshot of your cart? So it would just like pop up, like these are the items you currently have in your cart, and then it goes away?
Yes, because you wouldn't actually put the screenshot in your cart in that message. You'd probably just do a link to it, and you could probably just send that HTML out. I've seen it done. I don't remember where, but it's possible. I can't think of a situation where you would literally run out of space in the flash message. Because like the idea of flash messages, like you could probably throw a lot of information there, but like usually they are your little small, tiny little messages. Does that make sense? You're not really going to convey like an end user license agreement in there. That just feels not cool.
But like in our flash messages, we've only sent out like a quick little text blurb. But is there anything that prevents you from sending something that's like really large?
There's probably an upper limit to it, but like I don't think that you're gonna hit it.
Okay.
I think that it would be a massive edge case, like a specialized use where you hit that.
Okay.
Steve?
Yeah, I was just wondering if it could be like maybe problematic to be testing this flash method as saying that a song has been added to the cart before incorporating the action of it being saved in a cart. Is it giving you like maybe like a false positive that you've like done something that you haven't done yet?
Yes. But the thing is that I also want to display like we kind of want to demonstrate that like, hey, this is how we write tests to make sure that we are writing good tests and we cover those situations. So we'll be writing better tests. Like what we have here is a good start because the test we've written forces us to do things like create the right route, the right controller. It is up to us to write additional tests that will kind of cover that functionality you're looking for. I personally do not like to write a giant, huge test that will do everything from the start because I think that makes a very large task for you and it's kind of overwhelming. Like I think that's easier for us humans to break tasks up into manageable chunks because it's just easiest for us to kind of grasp onto with our mind, hold on to at one time. Cool. Anna?
I'm just thinking about the cart here in Amazon. So the cart, you always see how many items you have across all pages that you go to. Wouldn't you want the same? Okay.
We're going to get there.
Thank you. Awesome.
Cool. It is 9:39. Let's take a 6-minute Pomodoro break. Be back at 9:45. I'll be doing 10 squats if anyone would like to squat with me, or plank, or push up, or lunge, or any other language. Oh man, as I get up, I'm just like really sore and I don't want to squat now, but okay, so we're back. Can you all see my screen / hear me? Everything's still good video-wise? I see some nods. We're good. All right. So we've we set it up so it displays a message, which is fine, but it doesn't actually do anything, which is less fine. let's go back to our test, right? And so we have this test, and it's okay. And what we want to do is that we want to set it up. We want to write a test that will kind of poke holes into what the code we've created so far. So let's add another test we're going to do. It increments properly for more than one song. Oops. Cool. I'm going to, let's do this here. Artist equals artist.create name Astley. Actually, cool. Let's actually do this. We'll make 2 songs. Did you know that Rick Astley has more than one song? He does.
Good.
I'm just using numbers for there. And we do visit songs. Okay. What I'm going to do, because I don't want to type this because I'll mess this up, I'm just going to paste in this test. Cool. So what we've done is create an artist. I've created 2 songs as artist. I've gone to the songs index page, and I click the first song, I click the second song, and I click the first song again. And we expect the page to say like, "Hell, I have 2 copies of the first song in your cart." Questions about this test?
Yeah. Why do the song 2 at all? Like, what does that add to this particular test, since we're just testing that it shows up as you have 2 copies of something?
I kind of want to start thinking about, like, I want the information to persist, right? That it's not just a counter, that I can click something else, and that it doesn't, like, the idea here is that I want to have another song because I don't want to see 3.
Gotcha.
Does that make sense?
Yep, gotcha.
Brian?
Just kind of following along with what Ryan said, like that kind of sounds like a different test. It sounds like test that the cart can have multiple songs.
Yeah, I can see that. You can see him saying that. We can, I guess we could, yeah. I think that, like, when that test would be like, I would also be counting to see that, I would make if I wanted to test that, I would test that be able to see that both songs were in the thing and not just like the one was incremented. But that is a good point. Yeah, I can see where you like you can interpret it that way. But I just mainly want to like include that here. Like if I was doing this in a real app, I probably would not structure my test in this way. We structure the test in this way to kind of like lead you down this path of how we kind of build out the cart and how everything fits together. Any other questions about this? About this test so far? Cool. So we want this kind of the idea here is that we want to every single time, essentially what we're doing here is that every single time we are clicking a button, it's adding a song, we get that flash message that says that we have, the total number of songs, right? And now, if we run the test, we're going to get the messages. It's not going to increment properly. We're going to get just like essentially a text mismatch if we run the test. And now we have to start thinking about implementation, right? The thing is that we could potentially store our cart in the database. And this is something that some companies do. They keep their carts in their database. But there are some drawbacks to doing this. One, it would require multiple updates and potentially deletions when someone is going through their cart and actually deciding what they want to buy. That's a lot of database work, considering like when we think about it, like I'm buying things on Amazon, like groceries, I change the quantity. Like I will buy 5 bags of chips. And I think to myself, that's crazy, Mike. Don't buy 5 bags of chips. Like that's more chips than anyone needs. Like I'll buy 2. I'm like, no, if you only buy 2, you're gonna get hungry later this week and you're not having, like you can see that whole thing where every single time I'm fighting with myself, I'm changing the quantity of items, I'm adding things. That every single time we do that, that's a hit to the database, and those are expensive. When I say expensive, I mean they are computationally and time expensive. And like I think that in computing, especially in computing, the adage "time is money" is very, very real. And so we kind of don't want to do that. Also, the problem with keeping things in a database is that if someone wanted to use a cart, like they would have to create an account in the site before they could add anything to the cart. Because if we're using the database, how are we going to figure out like who this cart belongs to? And then like we have the situation, like what if someone just like never buys stuff? They just add to the cart and they just leave. Like that stuff is kind of stored in the database. Well, like over time, like that could grow to be potentially a large amount of data that's just sitting dead in your database. And then you have to think about some kind of maintenance process that you would have to do in order to kind of clean that up. So for that reason, what we're going to do is that we're going to use a session to kind of store this information. And by using a session, we are kind of avoiding these problems that we get with storing the database. We are not saying that you should never store a cart in the database. There are definitely reasons why a cart could be stored in the database. And I will use the example for Amazon of Amazon uses something, at least at the very least, database like to store the cart, because for a couple of reasons. One, they want to know what you're adding to your cart so they can figure out, like they pretty much analyze your habits and mine that information and try to sell you more things. Two, one of the advantages of this is that like if I'm on my phone and I'm like shopping online, I add it to the cart and I don't buy it on my phone because I haven't saved, for whatever reason, if I go to my computer because I'm attached to that account, all the stuff is in the cart is still there. So there are certain advantages to doing database. You can definitely store the cart in the database. We are not doing that here. Ryan?
What is, so I understand some of the major differences between a cookie and a session.
Yep.
What would be the advantage of using a session here instead of a cookie?
Personally, I like using the session because it's encrypted. Like
so
the
security.
Yeah, a user cannot futz what's inside the session.
Yeah.
If you installed the edit my cookie whatchamacallit extension.
Yeah, the extension.
You could just like whatever. Right?
Gotcha.
Whereas with a session is a little more protected. It's more of like a lockbox, and like that's for me to like keep track of you.
All right, and just to make sure I'm on, the session does persist. Does the session like blank out once you shut down the server and go back in?
No, because the session gets sent to the server from the client.
So the session in this case, in Rails case, stores on the client side.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not always the case, right?
What do you mean?
So the difference, one of the major differences that is explained between a cookie and a session is that a session is oftentimes, but not always, stored on the server side.
Yeah.
And a cookie is stored on the client side.
Mm-hmm.
But we're saying that a session is sent to us from the client in this case.
Yep.
Which would infer that it is stored on the client side.
It is, yes.
For us, for Rails.
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Cool. All right. So now let us go to the cart controller. And we are going to type in a lot of code. So I'm going to type it and then I'm going to walk through it. I cannot type today. All right. So the first thing here is that you notice that we're converting the song ID to a string. And what we're doing, the reason why is that our code can certainly process the song ID as an integer, but the thing is that when the session is packed up into store in the session and read back again, it's no longer an integer. And so essentially what we're doing is we're making sure that the song ID is going to be a string. What this line here does is that we have some memoization. And what this says is that, hey, do we have a session, a cart key in our session object? If we do, we are going to do nothing. If we don't, like as in a case where someone visits our site for the first time, we're going to create a new cart inside our session that's just going to be a hash. And then down here, we're saying, okay, we're going to look in the cart, and in our cart, we're going to look for this song ID string. This is how we're going to track our songs. If we've never encountered the song before, we're going to set to 0. If we have, we're going to use whatever that value is. And here we are incrementing that. And then here in this line 8, we are just essentially modifying the string that we have to display us the quantity of the song and the song title. Let us open it up for questions.
Is there a specific reason you're not just using the incrementer on line
7? Just want to be super, super explicit.
Okay.
Just saying, like, I just wanted to see, like, hey, we're taking this value, we're adding 1 to it.
Cool.
Using the incrementer would work as well, but.
Okay.
Tony?
Any particular reason why you use the hash and not just an array with song IDs in it?
Yeah, because I want to keep track of song IDs and the number, the quantity per song ID. If I just use an array, I would just have a number of songs. Tracking it this way lets us avoid some math later on. Like so let's say we were to use that array, right? It would be like the array, I guess in this case it'd be 1, 2, 1, and then we'd have to do some math to count how many ones were in there.
Couldn't you just save them from having to do duplicate songs altogether by just doing a unique so that you can only
Yeah,
have
but I
one
want to
song?
know how many. The idea here is the cart will store how many of each song we have. We're not just counting the songs, we need to know how many.
Gotcha.
And so like when we use a hash, it's just a straight lookup to find the quantity as opposed to an array where we got to iterate through and count.
Gotcha.
Cool. Okay. So we're done, right? This fixes all our problems. Our lives are easier now. We have a cart. Ooh, server's still up. Let us run our test. And so we have expected this line. We expected to find text. You now have two copies of Never Gonna Give You Up in your cart, but you now have 2 copy of Never Gonna Give You Up, which is not great. So does that mean I have to like do this conditional in here to figure out if my quantity is plural and then change the word copies to copy 2 copies? Does that sound like a fun thing that people want to do in code to handle quantity in good English? Is that something you'd like to fill your spare time with? Thank you for that. Thank you for that. No, Brian. That is also the correct answer. Is that no? That seems like a terrible waste of time. Thankfully, this is another thing that the elders of Rails have seen as a problem and have given us a tool to fix. They're called text helpers. And what we can do is that we can bring them into our Rails app by doing include action view helpers text helper. And what that does is that it gives us this fancy method called pluralize. And what I'm going to do is that I'm going to clean this up a little bit. I'm going to have a quantity here. Quantity equals session cart song ID string. And here, I'm going to have pluralize quantity, which comes from here, which is going to be a number, and the word. Rails is pretty smart, as in most of the common words you'll probably use in the English language this will be able to recognize most of them and be able to pluralize properly. However, I do want to warn you, some words, especially possibly some more obscure or arcane words that have strange pluralizations may not work, and you may need to do it yourself. Personally, I would just use a different word that was recognized, but I understand sometimes you may not have that opportunity to do that. Questions about this pluralize method and what I've done to get it? Jordan, then Brian.
Maybe might answer Brian's question first. I just wanted to go back through line 7.
Okay.
I guess on yours 4 to 7, if that's how it.
We'll go through it. Brian.
Yeah, just a quick reminder, your include statement there. Kind of just step through. We're looking inside the action view module for a helpers module or helpers method, or
modules.
Just kind of step through.
It's probably these are most likely modules nested within modules nested modules.
Okay, and then the text. Okay, gotcha. So it's just a nested module. Got it.
Nested
Thank you. Sorry.
Space, All right. So going back here, what we're doing is that we want to work generally in strings because everything stored in a cookie/session is going to be a string. So we want to have that string here. And so what we're doing here is that we are setting up this line. And this line protects us from the case that a person visits to a site for the first time. When a person visits the site, adds something to the cart for the first time, it's going to look, hey, do I have a cart? Do I have a cart key inside my session object? If I do, I'm just going to use that. If not, I want to make a new hash. And then I'm going to look for a certain song inside my cart. Does this song exist? If it does, I'm just going to use that, whatever that value is. If it doesn't, we're going to start with 0. 0 because we've never dealt with a song before, so therefore it's going to be 0. Next line, whatever that is, be it a 0 or a number, we're just going to increment it because that's what we're doing. We're adding songs to the cart. The line after that, we're just pulling out quantity because I want to use it in here and not have to type out. I just want to shorten this up a little bit. Does that answer your question, Jordan?
Yeah, thank you.
Cool. Brian, is that new or is that from before the hand? It is from before.
From before, sorry.
Cool. That's all right.
Could you just hash new 0 default? And
it doesn't.
Get a line out of there.
It does not like that.
Okay.
I've not torn into why it does not like that, but it does not like that.
It being Rails?
Ruby.
It's my lightning talk for next week.
Does anyone want to run the test? Is it going to work? Are we going to be disappointed? This is always like the most nervous part. Like I did all this typing. Did I make a typo anywhere? Oh. And as always, after our test pass, let us start up the server. It's going to refresh to make sure. One copy. 1 copy, 2 copies, 3, 4. It's doing the thing. And of course, we run the whole test suite. And I did not break anything else. Any questions up to here? Just want to make sure that like this is like a lot of stuff, and I want to make sure we're all kind of clear before we move on. Cool. So we've got that passing. And I think that our next step is that we want to talk about that kind of functional Anna was talking about a little bit ago, where we want this like little thing in the corner of our screen that tells us how many things we have total in our cart, right? And what I want to do is that we're going to call it displays total number of songs in the cart. And I'm going to copy and paste this test because typing is hard. So what we've done here is that create an artist, create 2 songs. When we just visit the songs, when we just visit the songs index, there should be nothing in our cart, right? We've not done anything. It's just empty. We click on a button, 1, click on another button, 2, click on another button, 3. Any particular questions about this test? Cool. Question for the cohort. How do you keep a cohort in suspense for 7 minutes?
Take a palm.
You'll take a palm. You'll find out at 10:15. That's important. Cool. All right, we got this test. Let us run it. Cool. Try to find cart 0. Didn't find cart 0. So the kind of like I guess the kind of intent that we have here is like often when we're shopping on sites, the little cart things up in that little corner that tells us how many things we have in our cart. And if we want something to appear on every page, where should we put that? Anyone?
Yeah, I think it goes in that I think it was in views layouts, and it was like application HTML or something.
Yep. Our friend here, right? And yeah.
Quick question on that. Is it best practice to place it in here or to set a standard layout that's different than this? I know in application controller that you can say like layout and put main in quotes and then set up a new view and where everything would inherit from that as opposed to this, you know?
Yeah. I think like the application HTML is where you want something, is where we want stuff to appear on every page, on absolutely every page. So like, for example, we already have the flash message stuff here.
Yeah.
Like,
so gotcha.
Cool. So let's kind of like, I guess I'll put it down here in the body. And, you know, if we were just gonna do the thing, we don't care about anything, we just do this, right? But we know this is not gonna work, right? Because when we run the test, it's gonna like, okay, we pass the assertion where we're trying to find cart equals 0, but it's gonna pass, it's gonna like complain when we get to cart 1, right? When we click the button the first time. And so the big picture is that we could potentially pass in like a cart to use in here, but not a cart. We could pass in like just the count in here, but it feels like we're doing a lot of logic with the cart. Like if we go back to our, when we go back to here, right? Oops, no. This feels like a lot, right? There's a lot happening in here. And like, especially since we talked about like what kind of logic belongs in the controller when we talked about MVC in the past, when we talk about Sandy Metz's rules of like, we should really be keeping our controllers down like 5 lines or less around that, around that area, right? And one moment. Hey, go to your room. Dog is being a little loud. What we want to do is that we want to break up this logic in our controller, right? And the idea here is that we want to have an object that has a total method on it. And this total method will just tell us, you know, how many things there are in the cart, right? We're not using a model because, like we said, we're storing everything in the session. But the thing is that this is where I think that we've kind of, like, you may have conflated these two ideas in the past, where a model is a class. Like, yes, but what we can do is that we can create a class here that is not a model. We can create a class that will hold code and organize code for us that is not backed by the database. And what we do is that these are called poros, P-O-R-O-S, and that stands for plain old Ruby objects. And these are objects that you created in module 1 previously. We're just now going to start using these in the context of Rails, right? And they are an amazing tool in order to like help us kind of refactor out this kind of like this messy controller. I want to mention to you specifically that a poro is not just used for carts. Poros are used for any reason, a multitude of reasons, or to clean up and refactor our controllers. It's just that we are using the cart as one potential implementation. We're using a poro to implement the cart. A poro can be used for many other things as well. This is just one example of it. Right, so we're gonna do this kind of this big picture idea of like we have this cart and we want to like kind of like a little bit of no, that's not what I wanted to be. We want to kind of like define how we'd love to use the cart, right? And how I want to use it is that I want to have this in the application controller. But let me just, dun, dun, dun. What I'd like to do is have this thing here, and we have a cart.total count. Right, I'd like to have like some object, some cart object that I'm passing to the view, and that thing has a method on it called total count. They'll just return me the value of the thing, the value of all the things in the cart. And I'm going to run our test. And like everything just freaks out, right? Because the idea, what's happening, it's like, well, I can't run total count on this at cart because I don't know anything about at cart. So what we can do is that in our songs controller, in our index action, because we are doing everything from the index action, we're adding the cart there, we're getting returned there once we've added to the cart. We are going to do this. Cart equals cart.new. And the idea is that we want to pass in what's in our session so it knows what to do with it. And if I run my test again, what error addresses do we think we're going to get?
Undefined method.
Not undefined method, but close. What we're going to do is that we are going to get an uninitialized constant error songs controller cart because we don't know what a cart is. Like we've tried to instantiate a cart object, but we haven't actually made it yet, right? So what's our next step?
Make it.
No, we got to write a test first. Just make cards. What do you think we are? We're not animals.
Cowboys.
We're not the proletariat just making classes all willy-nilly. We're going to make a model test. And it's going to be, yes, like I do want to like reiterate, like, no, we're not making a model, but it's kind of like a model like object, like these unit tests. We still got to write unit tests for it, and unit tests usually go in your models folder. Cart spec.rb.
You weren't mentioning that these aren't models, though, right? They're not backed by the database.
No. But this
But
is
they are done in models.
Yes.
Okay.
It's model-like. Model adjacent, however you want to look at it. So I'm going to make a... And we're just going to pass in here like a faked out hash. So we're going to have 2 copies of song 1. Oops. And we're going to have 3 copies of song 3. Because the idea here is that we are passing to the cart, our cart from the session, which is just a hash that we've created in our controller. And we're going to expect cart.total count to equal 5. I think that we've seen that students get a little wary about writing model tests because we haven't really done too much of it and we've not done too explicitly. But essentially, this is like the same thing as assert equals cart.total count 5 if we're doing mini test. That's right? I just haven't done many tests in a while. That feels right to me. Anyway. Cool.
It's opposite. I'm pretty sure you would put the 5 on the other side. Like you're expecting 5 to be from the method.
That's fair.
Right?
I always mix those up. Cool. So, David, do you have a question?
Why do you have a hashtag in front of the total count?
To denote that it's an instance method.
Okay.
Yeah, generally the pound symbol is an indicator of an instance method. A dot is for class methods.
Could you go back to that screen for just a second?
The screen?
Yes, please. Thanks. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Mike, can you say that part about the hash and the dot again?
Yeah. So first I want to mention the describe is just a string that describes the task. It doesn't matter what I put in here, but generally when we are referring to an instance method, we denote it with a pound symbol. It's just a way of me saying hey, just so you know, this, I intend this to be an instance method. Cool.
Is there a way to denote class methods?
Dots. Cool. Let us run our test, and I'm going to do spec models cart. And what error message do we think we're going to get?
Still uninitialized constant? Oh, you're running this test.
Mm-hmm. It's going to say uninitialized constant cart. So we just go make a cart. And yes, it goes in the model directory. Model, sorry. It's standard, usually goes into models. One thing, some people like to make their own Poros directory, but I would not worry about that unless you're dealing with like a lot of them. I think that like most people will look for Poros in the models directory. So we got to make our cart. We're not going to inherit from application record because this is not going to be database backed.
Mike, just a quick question while you're typing. Do model directories and like controllers and the rest, do they understand directory structure? So if you started having a big list of Poros, could you stick them inside a directory and they would still find it?
Mm-hmm. It's kind of recursive how it loads everything together.
Thank you.
I also noticed that you don't have an existence test or attributes tests, something that was beaten into us in mod 1. Is that like a necessity here? Or are we just skipping over it just because, or is it just assumed in the test?
We're just skipping over for now. So we're like, it's generally a good idea to do that. I just just for the time frame, we're just going to kind of squeeze things down. You don't have to do like, it's generally even good idea to do that for like models. So essentially here, what we're gonna do, this class is gonna do is gonna take in whatever we have, our session is gonna be the contents, and we're gonna do an add reader contents so we can see what's in there. And the total is just gonna grab contents, which is a hash. It's gonna take, it's gonna use the values method, which makes an array of all the values, and it's gonna sum them together. And I'm gonna run the test. Cool, model test passes. That's awesome. Let us go back to our features, cart, add song spec. And it's not happy. No values for nil class. And unfortunately, this is what happens, because what happens here is that we're trying to like, let me rephrase here. When we are running our tests now, we are encountering the session for the first time. And the first time we render our index, our session hasn't been set yet. So initial content is going to be nil. So what we're going to do is that we're going to add some memorization to make sure that content is always going to be a hash. So in our cart here, we'll do this. Hash.new. Cool. That's a fun time for everyone.
Can you go back to the model, please?
Mm-hmm. The idea, let me finish what I'm saying. I think this is going to answer your question. We do this because the very first time someone goes to our songs index page, there is no session yet because it's the very first time. And so this code handles that situation. The very first time, our session's not set, so this comes in as nil. And so what we're doing here is like, hey, if the case is that this is the first time we're ever rendering this page for this user and there is no session, we're just going to presume that we have an empty hash as our cart. Does that answer your question? No. Okay. Well, what's your question? Sorry.
Oh, it's okay. I didn't expect you to know it beforehand. I was actually just curious if that or syntax is like a shorthand or like an if. Like, would you ever use an if else here?
It's a bit of a syntax, because essentially what we're doing here is we're asking if no that's essentially what's happening.
but you could write it that way, like if you needed some more complex logic or whatever, I guess is.
Yeah. If I need to add more things to it, I would do it that way.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
How does application view have access to the cart?
Say that one more time.
So we defined this count in our application layout, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the view. So how does that view have access to the cart variable?
Yeah, let me go to the songs controller, because we do this here.
Okay, so application, I'm going to keep calling it application view. The application layout has access to anything that's instantiated in any controller?
No.
Or just in songs
not there
index?
yet.
Okay.
So the thing is that if I do this right now, it's going to eat itself, because I've not made it work for everyone yet. We're just still working in our very small feature. We're going to make it work everywhere.
Yeah, gotcha.
Not yet.
Okay.
Jordan?
Real quick, can you remind me where initial contents is coming from exactly? Please.
Yeah. It comes from right here. We're sending in whatever's in the session card.
So this line 5 that we have right now is like exactly the container that gets sent over to.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you.
Cool. All right. So our new test passes, but we still have to let's go to our card controller like that. This is new, right? There's a lot kind of happening here. And the idea here is that now that we have a cart poro in order to kind of contain some of the stuff, what we can do is that we can start shoving some of this information over to the cart. So let's do this. We can start adding some, moving some of this logic here, right? So here we have song. So we're going to use cart equals cart.new session cart. Right, we're going to initialize the cart here, and we're going to create with whatever's in the session. We can have cart.add song.id, and then after that we do session cart equals cart.contents, quantity equals cart.count of song.id. So what we're doing is that we are letting the controller handle and set the session, but our poro that we've created, our cart, is now in charge of managing the hash that we're storing there. Both it's going to be in charge of what happens when we add songs to it and reporting on how many of a particular song we have, right? So if we run our test now, it's going to complain I don't know anything about an add song. I don't know anything about a count of. So what we can do is that let us add some more tests to that spec so that we can cover this functionality, right? So we're going to do describe add song it and I'm going to copy and paste this because me typing hashes is a recipe for disaster.
I think you want add song, not add as ong in your describe add song block.
It's line 12.
Yes. What did I call it in my thing?
Adds as ong.
Yeah, thank you. Questions about this test? We're just making sure that it modifies it. Cool. So it's going to complain if we run the test, our model test now. It's going to complain that there is no method, so we have to add the method. So let us do def add song. We're just going to increment it, and again, we're coercing it from a integer to a string because that's how that's how it has to be sent out back to the cookie / session as. Okay. So let's run the test. RSpec, spec models, cart. Did I not save it? Let's take a look here. Cart spec 21, given 0, expected 1. Cart spec 21. What am I doing wrong?
Is it because the keys aren't in strings? It looks like in the test the keys.
No, but it worked previously for the test up top.
What is subject.add song
Oh,
one?
I think it's
my
that
mistake,
song.
Yeah. This is what happens when you copy and paste the wrong test. Sorry.
You also have subject.context in your.
Thank you. Thank you for catching that. That is good eyes. Cool. So it's complaining that this doesn't exist. I also want to mention, like, that's, I want to explain the subject part. The subject is a syntax you can use in RSpec. It's kind of similar to a, kind of like a setup. I don't think it's that useful. You can look up the syntax if you'd like to use that. So what we're doing is that we're getting this error message here that undefined method plus for nil class. Right, so let's go back to our cart object. Contents id to string equals contents to string plus 1.
Can you explain how you're adding an integer to a string? Because like you're turning your contents to a string and then you're adding 1 to it.
So this is not, I'm not converting to a string. I'm converting this ID.
Right. To a, oh, okay.
Right, like that's the key.
Cool.
Right, and so it's complaining that this is nil. And the thing is that we've never seen this before. Right, so we now have to do this kind of like, we have to kind of set this default value to 0 here, because this is nil because it's never seen the song before. Why do you hate me? So let's just kind of poke at it and see what's happening. Cool. ID 1, contents 1, 2, 2, 3. Okay. I see what's happening now. Because we made those changes to the test. Cart spec. Quit. Let's make sure I've taken that pry out. We should be good. And the test passes. Cool.
Right.
Yeah.
Earlier you said that by setting a default value that Ruby was not happy with that, and then you just set a default value
in
of
that
0.
particular case, where we were doing that's actually gone now. We don't need that anymore. So if we go back in time to where we tried to set that default value, when you start nesting things, that default value doesn't always take. But because we are just working with this hash by itself, default value does work.
Before, did we have that in the controller, and that's why it was unhappy? And now we just have it in a regular Ruby class?
It not because it was a controller, because we were nesting things another level down.
Okay.
Cool. So now we've got this here. We want to go ahead and add another method. Like we want to grab we added two pieces of functionality that we wanted. The first was that we wanted to add songs to it. Now we want to grab the count of songs, right? Describe count of do it. Right. And what we're going to do is that we're going to have test the case where there are no songs in the cart, and that 0 case when we first log into a page, right? So let's see, cart.new, singing an empty hash, and we do expect cart.count of, let's say, song ID 5 equals 0. And on another end, so what should this return? Like if we are going to try to get the value of a thing, it is going to give us no method count of. So gotta make a count of. Def count. Right. Expected 0 got nil. Now this is a situation where this here isn't quite working for us. This hash new 0, kind of like we talked before. And so what we can kind of do is that in programming, there's this idea called type coercion, where when we run a method on certain values, it will give us different kind of things. So what we can do here is that this is I don't want to say it's one of those BuzzFeed top tricks in Ruby, But if you try to convert nil into an integer like this, it will make that work. What? Sorry. I need to save it. And it passes. And so this gets kind of weird because like now we also have to like think about songs that haven't been added yet, and we've seen that this is not this hash, the default value here is not something that works very well. So we want to add a test here to, where are we? Cart spec. It adds a song. Let's do this. We have a cart, has a song 1 and song 2, and we're going to do cart.add song 3. Expect. I'm just going to copy and paste this because I think typing hashes is probably my least favorite thing to do in Ruby. Can y'all look at that with me? Did I miss any commas, quotations? That looks good. Does that look good to all you?
Hey, Mike, quick question.
Yeah.
Since we're looking at syntax, in this particular instance, is it like the others where you can use symbols and it'll convert it back and forth between strings?
No. Like the things that we're just working purely in Ruby at this point. And we want to like make sure it's strings because we want to like maintain what kind of data type we're using. And so when we're doing that, when we maintain the data type, it just makes things a little easier for us.
Roger. Thanks.
Yep. Cool. So what I'm going to do is that we're going to have the situation here and go back to our cart. And like this here does not take that case where it's never seen a song before. So what we can do is that we can leverage this method we've written before. This count of method is taking the is going to handle for us any situation where the content is nil and it's going to convert to 0 using this principle called type coercion. When we coerce nil into an integer, nil becomes 0. So by doing that, we don't have to worry about setting default values like Mike was talking about. It will just like, hey, if it's nil, it's going to be 0. If it's not going to be nil, it's just going to be the number. We're going to add to it and set it here. And we run the test. Our cart test passes. Questions up to this point? Cool. The very last thing that I want to talk about is that, so let's go back to our application. This feller. Because we are referencing at cart here, this means that potentially we have to define at cart in every single controller action that we have. Does that feel good to us? Does that feel, all right? We got some strong handshakes. No, and like no, because that isn't dry, right? And like it feels like real bad to have to instantiate this cart object in every single controller action. This is setlist is a relatively beeping. Stop. Setlist is a relatively small app, and how many controllers actions do we have already? We got 1, 2, 3 here, probably a couple of more artists. Like, do we want to do that? Like, and the thing is, like, what if we decide if the way we interact with cart changes? We want to change that. We have this serious problem that we now have to make the same change everywhere. And when we do it this way, like, I can guarantee you that if you have to make 5 identical changes in 5 different places, you're gonna mess up one of them. Like, you're gonna, like, yeah. And also, I'd never trust find and replace, because you're gonna replace something you didn't mean to. So what we're going to do is that, what did we say that for controllers, what if we wanted some code to exist across all controllers? Where did we say that we want to put that in the past?
Application.
Andy? Application controller, right?
Application, yeah.
Yep. And we'll take this one back down. Cool. So what we're going to do is going to go over to our friend application controller, and we're going to do this. We're going to do helper method cart def cart. Okay. So what this does is it sets up the helper method of cart, and we're defining this cart method as it's going to be stored in this instance variable cart. First time we ever hit a cart is going to check. I'm like, okay, we're going to create a new object, and we're going to put the session inside that cart. We're going to create that cart. If there already is a cart, then it's just going to use that same cart. The helper method is a syntax that we use so we can access it in the views. So now that we have this here in our application controller, we can go to our songs controller and get rid of this. We go to our cart controller and get rid of this. We can get rid of that instance variable there. And in our I think it still stays. Oops. Let us run our feature test. Spec features cart and song spec. Oops.
Mike, when you get a chance, can you just go through that sequence of files again? Just like this, the files themselves, the sequence you went through.
Mm-hmm. And that passes, and we run the whole thing, and all passes. So to answer that question, I'm going to sequence the files. What I did was, don't ever use Vim. You will hate your life. I've created this cart method in my application controller, and I've set it up to either report out the cart or create a new cart with nothing in it on the first access. I've created a helper method of the cart, which lets me use this cart method wherever I go. So my next step was that, like, well, let me think. Where have I already done essentially this line of code in the past? And I've done that in 2 places. I've done that in the songs controller because I put it in the index, because we were working with the index, and we instantiate at cart there. And I also did it in the cart controller when I was using update. Right. So I only went to these 2 files because I knew that these were the places where I had that line of code previously, and because I've essentially refactored and pulled that out into the application controller, I removed it there. My next step was that I went to the application.html.erb, and I removed the @ symbol here because we no longer have that. Because of the helper method, we just referenced the cart with a lowercase c. Brian, I saw a hand ever so momentarily. Is it up?
Yeah, it's up. Sorry about that.
Yeah, that's all right.
Just still a little fuzzy on if you go back to your application controller, line 3 there where it says helper method symbol cart.
What this does is it makes this cart method available everywhere.
So the helper method
in the views.
That's it. That's a keyword in the app in the controllers.
And it'll let you access this method in the views.
Okay, and that's not to be confused with the session symbol cart.
Yes. This is just saying like helper method. I'm going to have a method. Look for the method called cart down below, and this is going to be a helper method that I want to have access in the views.
Okay. Yeah, it just looks recursive, kind of where it has the simple cart inside of cart.
Yeah, I think that like we could differentiate this by calling this like session cart, but that doesn't feel great because it's in the session. I think
but
that
they are separate things.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like I think that one of the biggest troubles with programming sometimes is that we can conflate terms so very easily because we want to use the simplest language, and essentially what we have to do is we have to be very careful in our context and our explicitness when we refer to things. So like I'd like to use as many descriptive words as possible, like saying like I'm talking about the method cart, as opposed to IVAR cart or the session cart. We need to be very specific about what we're talking about because like one of the stylistic rules of Ruby is that we try not to name variables based on what their contents are, right? Or what type they are. Like you never do students array. Like, no, it's students. Like this is where that kind of like tests that rule. But like as you get used to building this a little more, I think you'll get a better feel as to like what we're referring to.
Excellent, thank you.
Mike?
So we were able to drop the at cart to cart because we are able to reference this actual cart method now because they're inheriting that method from application controller.
So I want to mention that there are two ways that this is happening. In our cart controller, I drop the at symbol here and here and here. Actually, like just these 3 lines, because I'm inheriting from application controller, right? I am able to drop the at symbol here in the view because of helper method.
Okay.
Like this is happening because of 2 very separate reasons why, and I want to make sure like it's very important to understand like why, like which one is happening because of what.
And if you didn't have that helper method, you would still have to define what at cart was so that you could see it in your views? Okay.
That's why we have helper method. Like it just takes that trouble of dealing with that afterwards. Cool. Other questions?
Hey, Mike, will you push this code up so we can use it?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Cool.
Yes, 100%. Tony?
Actually, I think Mike was before me. I don't know if that matters or not, but
I thought that is that. I think the hand was just still up from before.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot.
You're muted, Tony.
Sorry, I was just curious. So I just want to understand that application controller that we created. Yeah. So that functions sort of like our application HTML or application CSS in the sense that whatever we put in here and we attach one of these helper method tags to is globally available in terms of that method and what it does.
Yeah, all controllers inherit from application controller.
Awesome. All right. Thank you.
Jordan?
Just to double check, the include action view helpers text helper related.
Let me get to that. Let me go back to that. That was in.
It was in
our controller. This here, yeah.
Yeah, that line's just that specifically relates to pluralize, right?
Yeah, like that gives us the ability to use pluralize.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Anything else? Kevin?
Yeah, initially, before we moved the @cart to the application controller, we had the @cart put in the song index, kind of because we needed an index for restfulness. Could we have put the cart in its own index in its cart controller?
I mean, if you're looking
there in songs,
we're not dealing with we're not looking at everything in the cart yet.
Okay.
Like when you're looking at everything in the cart, you're going to have a index action for your cart controller. But essentially right now we're just sending flash messages and not anything else.
Okay. So it just needed a place to live before we actually built a place for it. Okay.
Cool. All right, that is it for today. I'm going to push this code up, and I'll let you know when we do.
One last thing.
Yep.
Mike, just a second. I realized I didn't pull this down earlier today, and I want to. This is so dense. I think I'm going to have to go through it a few times.
Yep.
With the video, and I want to be able to put the code in myself. Can you just wait a few minutes before you?
I mean, you can also just check out the previous commit.
Oh, great. Okay.
Right? Because Git like gives you these checkpoints. You just
True. All right.
Cool. So I'm going to send out a CFU for you later today. I'm going to go push this up and try to get this video up for you so you're all set. We have check-ins starting this afternoon. During your check-in, you should be prepared to present all the code you have. We are expecting that every single thing that you have working up to this point is going to be on production. Let me take a look at the quick calendar real quick, make sure. Yep, the check-ins will start at 1:30 today. 1:30 for Meg and me, 1 o'clock for Corey. Cool, enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll talk to most of you later.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.